Hi, I'm Kim Putman. I'm a sociologist and author at Oregon Coast Community College.
Hi, I'm Liz Pierce. I teach in Human Development and Family Sciences at Lynn Benton Community College in Albany, Oregon. These videos are being made for Open Oregon Educational Resources.
In this video, we will build on your understanding of social constructions and connect that understanding to what it means to say that difference is socially constructed. To review, social constructions are shared understandings that are jointly accepted by large numbers of people in a society or social group. These understandings form a basis of shared assumptions about reality. Remember the examples about the value of money, the power of the flag, and the connection between gender and color? So when we talk about the social construction of difference, the difference part becomes notable when we name it and we assign a value to it. What do I mean by we? We doesn't have to include 100% of the people in a society. Social constructions can be powerful even if everyone in a given society or social group doesn't believe them. Even when a social construction is not universally accepted, it still has power. It still has real consequences. Here is a social identity wheel that focuses specifically on social characteristics, those that are usually defined by physical, social, or mental characteristics, such as gender, sex, socioeconomic status, race, or ethnicity. When you combine these identities, it is called your social location, your unique location related to power and privilege. In an expanded view of the social identity wheel, we see that it not only contains the social characteristics, but also what we call roles and relationships in the outer ring of the wheel. And on the innermost wheel are internal characteristics, or what we might think of as our personality. This part of the wheel contains values, beliefs, and motivations.
Black author James Baldwin said, "No one was white before she came to America. It took generations and a vast amount of coercion before this became a white country." White sociologist Alan Johnson quoted Baldwin's work when explaining that we filter reality, or what we think is real, through a cultural lens. In the United States, we have a lens that defines the concept of race as both important and hierarchical. As an individual, you may or may not be conscious of this. If you are white, part of your privilege is that you don't have to notice race. If you aren't white, you can't ignore it. Unless a culture defines a difference as significant, it is socially irrelevant. That's the important part. When we assign hierarchies, we socially construct differences. For example, in talking about skin color, our society has assigned value to skin color over hundreds of years, privileging people with white skin and oppressing people with brown or black skin. This difference in assigned value has been codified into laws, like slave codes or Jim Crow laws, enforcing racial hierarchies with laws and violence. Difference has been embedded into policies such as redlining, the practice of not loaning money to buy houses in specific areas. Difference is also practiced when law enforcement uses racial profiling. People of color may refer to this as driving, or more broadly, living while black. These ideas are embedded in our society and internalized in each of us. What makes this powerful is that we often don't even recognize that these ideas exist. We may see these differences as reality rather than something that has been invented and reinforced over time. And it doesn't take everyone sharing the same hierarchical thinking to have a very real effect on others. For example, discrimination based on sexual orientation and gender identity is expressed through laws, policies, and informal practices, even though not everyone agrees that heterosexuality should be privileged.
Because the other part of social construction is that social constructions are also real in their consequences. Where do you see that realness playing out?
And just thinking about an example, like, a friend of mine recently, she and her wife were celebrating their 25th anniversary, and she had an appointment, a long-standing appointment, to get her makeup done for the party. And she was going to have rainbows, done on her, over her eyes, and to match her rainbow-colored shoes. And the day of the appointment, when she explained exactly the makeup that she wanted and mentioned her wife. The makeup artist told her she wouldn't do it, couldn't do it, wouldn't do it. And so harm is not just about the laws that are out there, it's really about how people treat one another and how they think about one another. So even though we can say it's not real, like it's not really true that someone who's gay is less than or should have less rights than someone who's heterosexual, the consequences are real.
Some socially constructed differences may seem more subtle, such as the privileges experienced by tall people who are more likely to be men. Transportation designs, such as the height of seats on a bus, the grab straps for those standing on a train, and airbags in newer cars are examples of designs modeled on the average man's size and frame. These can put short people, more likely to be women or children, at risk. There is a continuum of power and privilege in the United States and many other places.
Socially constructed differences affect real-life behaviors and outcomes. For example, if we take marital status, in general, we would say that in our society we value the institution of marriage and perceive people more positively who have stayed married than people who have divorced. That's an example of assigning a value to a difference which socially constructs a hierarchy in those behaviors. But we live in a society which creates laws that allow people to get married or prevents them from getting married. Laws are part of privilege. Take a look at the power and privilege wheel. You can see that both people who are heterosexual and people who are white have more power. For example, until 1967, it was illegal in some states for a couple from different races to get married. And until 2015, federal law prevented same-sex couples from getting married. Without a change in these laws, these couples not only couldn't get married, but they also faced restrictions on getting health care, adopting children together, and receiving spousal benefits such as Social Security and other inheritances.
In addition to social structures, we often assign value to people of different groups unconsciously. Sociologist Alan Johnson talks about implicit bias as being the quick and unconscious judgments that people make about each other. These unconscious biases are based on assumptions or stereotypes that we may not consciously realize that we hold. For example, we are likely to assume people are straight if to us they appear to have typical characteristics, unless we are provided with other information or knowledge. Let's look at some other examples. When someone has light, white skin, then they are considered white. For example, do you think Texas Senator Ted Cruz is white? He actually identifies as Hispanic. Someone who wears dresses and makeup we may think of as feminine. Consider Demi Lovato. Would you think she identifies as a woman? She actually identifies as non-binary. Do you know someone who has a disability, but one that doesn't always show on the outside, such as chronic fatigue syndrome or lupus? Invisible disabilities don't show on the outside, but they are real nonetheless.
We don't tend to question our assumptions about race, gender, sexual orientation, or ability unless we run into someone who doesn't fit neatly into a category, or are given explicit information that conflicts with what we have socially constructed in our heads. Socially constructed differences privilege some of us and oppress others. Any individual may experience both privilege and oppression based on their unique combination of social identities and the socially constructed differences that exist. Even though socially constructed differences are not a reality, they have real-life effects.